Now, there is some criticism in academic circles of integrated reporting. I don't know that it's huge, but it's very strong in some quarters, arguing that the International Integrated Reporting Council has moved away from its original intentions and promise to work to embed sustainability more into corporate reporting. Do you think those criticisms are fair? Do you have a response to that?
Yeah, I mean, I know of the criticisms. I think they're well thought through, but they're just plain wrong. I would do. I mean, I've listened hard to it and understood it and spoken to a lot of people about this issue. You know, it's the same as people used to say that one of the criticisms of integrated reporting, it would be the death of sustainability reporting, and that isn't happening. You know, and frankly, I never thought it would. Some of it is protecting turf, in my opinion, which is a bit of a harsh comment, but I think it's there.
Who's protecting what turf?
I think some of the academics are trying to build thinking that the sustainability side is, in effect, the main driver of integrated reporting. Right, the environmental and social. Whereas I would say that we're trying to change the behaviour of the capital market system. And that change of behaviour includes the sustainability elements, which in our world are the multi-capitals world of integrated reporting. So to my mind, what we are doing is changing a mindset, and a section of that mindset is the sustainability part, because it's about how businesses in the capital market create value over the long term. So if you are the long term is the same, but creating value is not just about adding ESG to financials, right? No, creating value is about things that matter in business, like brand value, IP, your people, your customers and how you deal with them. All of those sorts of things are missing ingredients in a capital market system. Okay, so I think that the accent on sustainability is perfectly laudable, but it is part of a change of a system. Now, if you look at our vision of the IIRC, it was revised only about a year ago, and it made very clear that we have two key parts to our vision, which are not separate parts, they're connected, like our philosophy with integrated reporting. And that connection is between a system that is financially stable and sustainable development in the broader social and environmental sense. Because you can't have a stable financial system that doesn't have a stable planet and community to work with. Right, and vice versa. So I would say that at heart we're doing exactly what that community would want us to do. What we're not doing is specialising in sustainability. What I truly believe, and you can tell by my background, what I honestly and truly believe, whether people agree or not is a different question. I truly believe that what we're doing is the way to embed ESG into the capital markets. And I believe that if you try to do it just by adding sustainability, it will actually not have the impact that we all want.
One of the criticisms have been that the council is dominated by accountants and accounting professionals, and that you've had to water down the argument in order to get those accountants on board. Now, you have engaged with a very diverse group of stakeholders, from accounting professionals, sustainability professionals, regulators, business and non-governmental bodies around the world, with very diverse interests. How have you managed to keep them on board? Well, get them on board to start with, and keep them on board. And how is that linked with the whole emphasis of the way that integrated reporting is going and shaping?
Okay. Well, I think I'll just go back a bit and then come forward if I can, because if you read the framework, and I don't mean the report side of the framework, but the framework as it sets out the concepts in the front section, I would pay tribute to Ian Ball, right, who at the time was the chief executive of IFAC, the International Federation of Accountants, and he's now retired, but gone back to the sheep in New Zealand. I'm sure he won't just stay there. But Ian chaired the working group, which really got to the heart of the framework and its concepts. And in that group, you had these diverse interests. And let it be abundantly clear that the sustainability voice was very loud. Okay, just as the investor voice was very loud, the corporate voice and others. And I found it very interesting that we took about a year to persuade or bring everybody together in the articulation that I hope I made a few minutes ago about the multi-capitals approach and changing, evolving the system, not just adding to what was already there. And I don't mind, it's probably valid to mention some names. When you get the likes of Bob Massey, I don't know if you know Bob Massey, who was one of the founders of GRI and is a deep sustainability, inverted commas man. I mean, Bob was, I suppose you would classify as compromised, but he compromised because of a bigger goal. Yeah, and others were. Bob may have been the most articulate voice, but he had many supporters and others who were talking in that group. And if you look back to the working group, it was full of people that you would know, Carol, from the sustainability world, including Ernst Lichterinen as the CEO of the GRI and others. In terms of looking forward, what's happened since that, it's very interesting that I think you go back to your interviews and the work that you've done and others have done in South Africa, is that people are have seen that our approach is actually mainstreaming sustainability, and they're starting to see, and Mervyn King, who is passionate about all of these things, talks about how you need a corporate a C-suite person for corporate responsibility and things, and so I think that going forward, you'd be surprised how the accountancy profession is not the one that pushes back around sustainability in general. It tends to be the investors, right, and some of the business community, which is the market. Right? And that's the market we have to influence with the right language and the right way of doing things. So I'm trying not to, I don't want to be defensive. I truly believe we're doing it the right way that will actually give the impacts and the outcomes that those who criticise actually want.
Do you think, to take an example, that integrated reporting could have done something, rang some alarm bells at VW as they were going through their emissions scandal, perhaps in the way that they handled the scandal? Do you think if they had been steeped into integrated thinking and integrated reporting that they might have handled that differently?
I wouldn't like to claim that if integrated reporting had been in place, you wouldn't have had the VW scandal. So let's be clear on that. However, if they were selling a lot of product and gaining market share on the fact that their standard cars were lower in their emissions, you would expect there to be a discussion about that whole area of the impact of emissions and the impact that would have on their business model. And you would expect them to be confident or seek confidence that what was being done was valid. And to me, it's nothing to do with assurance, external assurance. It's to do that if you're on a board and you're provided with information, that information you have to rely on, you should be challenging that information. And I do believe that, especially when you're talking about carbon emissions, about something that's impacting your business, how can you not be confident that the that the data and the information is not accurate.
Yeah, and of course, if you're thinking about value creation more broadly, you're also thinking about the possible impacts of reputation damage as well, aren't you? And they seem to not be aware of those.
Well, I think it goes right back to, as an argument we may not get into today, but it goes back to what is the purpose of the firm? What's the purpose of the company? And if they're reducing carbon emissions because it's good marketing, that's one way. And that's great. It's the same principle with Unilever and others like them. But they have to. I do think there is a greater purpose that one has to have.
Yeah.
And if you take the Unilevers of the world, I know they're the one that's always quoted, but there are many others like them who are there to make money, let's be honest, and to add value to the capital market system. But there is still a purpose of the firm, and that's a whole different discussion. But I think with VW, it rises to me that if you haven't had that discussion, which we call integrated thinking, or you could describe it as the purpose of the firm, then that's a little concerning.